Okay, so hello everyone. Today is Thursday, September the 7th, and we are continuing in our book reading of The Reading Flight. Harriott, would you like to take it away?
Will do. Sorry about that. Hi everybody. Before we get into our book today, let us just settle back for a minute or two, take a deep cleansing breath. And as we exhale, we let go of all the negativity and stresses and problems that we might have encountered during the day, letting them float away down the stream, out into the ocean. And as we listen to the story about Harriott, Light, Mendel, Orion, and all of the other characters, maybe they have something to teach us. And if they do, let us adhere and learn from them. And with that, I say, and so it is. Okay, everybody. Before we get started, I'm again going to kind of review who the characters are so you'll know who we're talking about when you hear the names. The book itself the protagonist is Mendel J. Orion. Orion is a writer, and he is presently attending a science fiction conference or convention in California. And he is writing a book, and his book, the protagonist in his book is Harriott Light, which our book takes the name from. And Harriott has a friend, soulmate, very close friend. His name is Jarian. Harriott also has a little pet that she calls Onyx. It's a dragon. And I think Onyx is one of those, almost like a chameleon. It can be anywhere and anything at any time. And two of the other characters in the book, and I forgot, Mendel, there's a young woman who is, well, I'm not exactly sure how she feels about Mendel, but he wants her out of his life. And I think she is almost like a stalker as far as Mendel is concerned. And there are two other characters that appear, and I'm not sure whether they are characters from the book that Mendel is writing, or whether they are characters that are a part of Mendel's circle of friends or acquaintances. And I think we're going to eventually see them appear in both his writing as well as his life. We'll find out as we go along. And with that said, we begin today with chapter 16. Sandra Wilford, and that's the young woman that's stalking Mendel, used the swing of her body to toss her hair back and forth behind her as she walked, and flex the muscles of her buttocks with each stride, taking the corridor as an opportunity for exercise. She turned down the right wing, and then she saw a white-jacketed hotel employee wheeling a room service cart. She quickened her pace. As soon as she determined his destination was Mendel's room, she stopped the man from knocking while managing a bill out of the wallet behind her waist. "Excuse me," she said, handing him the money. 618, right? He nodded and smiled gratefully, his timid demeanor telling her he didn't speak much English. "Thanks," she told him, and took over the cart. Watching the man go his way, Sandra secured the wallet, smoothed her hair, and adjusted her yellow dress, taking long enough for him to put distance between them. She knocked on 618 very lightly, without the intention of being heard. When she went to open it, she found the door locked. Through the shut bathroom door, Mendel heard a sharp knock on the outer door of his hotel room. "Your hamburgers are here." It was Sandra's voice. "My hamburgers are here," Mendel told Harriott matter-of-factly, with a matter-of-fact nod of the head and an accompanying matter-of-fact gesture with his mouth. He readjusted to the space and the time of the moment, where they sat on the bathroom floor. They had been wandering, silent in thought as they held each other. "Hey!" Another knock rapped louder than the first. Then came the edict. "Your hamburgers are here." "My hamburgers are here," Mendel repeated, and a grin tugged at the corner of his mouth. The situation, his entire life, seemed suddenly ludicrous. Sandra and all the things about which he had never tormented himself seemed mere specks. He felt elated, all-powerful. He began to laugh. Sandra called through the door, "Mendel, are you all right?" She pulled her hair back and pressed her ear to the door. She could hear laughter, followed by Mendel calling out, "I'm fine." "Didn't you hear me?" she shouted insistently, even though she was sure he had. "I said, your hamburgers are here." Such seriousness about a hamburger juxtaposed with a glimpse of the cosmos sent more laughing sweeping through him. "I'm coming in," Sandra warned. As Mendel heard her jingling the doorknob, he imagined the expression on Sandra's face as she continued making a Senate hearing out of hamburgers. Harriott was swept up on his mirth, and twinkles sparkled in her eyes as she watched him. "Your hamburgers are here and they're getting cold." The finality in Sandra's tone, the disgust and exasperation in it, promised that this was the last time she was going to say it. It was official. This was a grave matter. Mendel was laughing happily and wildly. When Sandra repeated her pronouncement yet again, it was the punchline to his life, a commentary on the importance of all that had tormented him. He couldn't stop laughing. He didn't want to. "What are you doing in there, Mendel?" Seeing a change in Harriott's expression cooled Mendel's merriment. Something about her face had changed. A look of pained acquaintance had descended over her. Her remote, but most definitely there, even as she tried to smile. It was discerning. Mendel managed to his feet and held his hand out to help the girl up. While doing so, he sought his reflection in the mirror. He looked at his body as though he had never seen himself before. He wasn't looking to check if the defects were still there. He looked to see. He did not instantly attack himself with criticisms as he used to do. When Harriott stood up, Mendel stepped closer to the mirror. Something hovered on the periphery of his awareness about himself. Something he knew yet didn't know. He struggled with the image of his eye, searching into his very pupils to find it. Arya stood behind him now. She was staring at her own reflection, much the same way. He turned and faced her. She was obviously trying hard to orient herself. She looked up at him with such plain simplicity that Mendel felt the urge to kiss her. Do you remember something? He asked her. Panel, she tried, grasping for some direction. Yes, he told her, disappointed not to hear her say the words for which he longed, yet happy to hear her voice, something which was important to him. He thanked her softly for remembering what he had said, feeling warmed that someone should care about him enough to want him to keep his word. I'll shower and we'll go. Mendel burst into a jubilee of gratitude for the panacea of her presence. What a glorious feeling gratitude was, triumph and humility combined. It dampened his parched soul. He expanded, pressed against, and stretched out all his edges. In his heart, 1,000 birds sang of morning. Arya turned and stared at the door when her wrists jumped, as if visibly receiving an impulse from her brain. She reached for the handle. The motion seemed mechanical, and as Mendel observed it, in a small fear jolted through him and mushroomed. He feared the innumerable ways he could lose what he had found. Arya, the girl turned, accepted the name as hers. Everything came to him to say all at once and stuck, too big to come out in words. So, to begin with, Mendel picked, this is a strange place. We have to be careful. She looked at him. Trust masking her eyes seemed even wider than they already were, and nodded agreeably. He nodded back, and she turned around to go. There was a vagueness about her, a distance. Oh, she exclaimed, excited when she saw the white dog outside the bedroom door. She quickly went to it. The animal collapsed into her embrace. The dog seemed relieved, as if it knew her. Is that your dog? Mendel asked. She didn't answer. It appeared she couldn't answer, and she gave Mendel an apologetic look as she continued embracing the dog and nestling her cheek against its fur. Mendel watched them for a moment, then said, Onyx? Onyx, Ariel repeated. Right, Mendel said. The dog opened its eyes and blinked up at Mendel. He took it as a confirmation that sent chills through him. Any comments so far?
Well, I think that I think it's just interesting that how when she introduces like a new scene, she puts in like a teaser from the last scene. Like
Uh-huh.
What's her name? Sandra.
Mm-hmm.
She's still doing her stalker thing.
Right.
And so she's there, but she's on the outside of the door while because she wants to introduce the character, how Onyx and Arya get together.
Right.
And I think it's
Yeah.
kind of how she keeps everybody in the loop all the time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you don't
Mhm.
have to wonder who the characters are. You know, some authors, they will introduce a character and then 10 or 12 chapters later, they disappear, and then 10 or 12 chapters later they come back. Well, who is this? You know?
Right. I had to go back.
Yeah. Any other comments? Shall we continue?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Sandra had been racing. Oh, let me start that one again. Sandra had been pacing to the elevators and back, debating with herself whether to report an emergency and get someone from the front desk to open the door. After all, Mendel does drink. He may have hurt himself in there. It might be embarrassing, but it might teach him to listen the next time. A vindictive desire breathed in her. On her second time to the elevator, she decided to give him one more chance and turned around. From the hallway, Sandra could hear music and the sound of water running through the wall plumbing. She thought she had heard a female voice within, but wasn't certain. Surmising Mendel was in the shower, she planned to wait until the water stopped before knocking again. But exasperation and impatience compelled her to lift her knuckles to the door once again. She delivered 3 swift raps. The door swung smoothly open, surprising her. A girl stood there, barefoot, dressed with a trash bag. Sandra stiffened. Hello. She could hear the shower running in the bathroom. Hello. I'm Sandra Wolford. She paused, Aria Flight. I just wanted to let Mendel know his hamburgers are here, Sandra said curtly. Motioning to the room service cart, she turned abruptly and left. It was intermission. Rex and Sandra sat in the brown folding chairs along the wall of the conference room, where the panel discussion was about to begin. Still agitated from her encounters with Mendel and that woman who opened the door to his room, Sandra continued flipping through a catalog of possible explanations for this latest development. Yet she could only surmise. Well, then, who is she? I don't know. Why didn't you ask her? Rex said. I was stunned. It's probably some fan playing games with Mendel. Just what he needs in his condition, Sandra fumed as she thought back. She was wearing a plastic bag, a garbage bag, she said incredulously. You have to admit, his goddess come to save him in a trash bag is pretty amusing, Rex giggled. I'm pretty sure she said that's her name. The name of his character? I remember, Aria Flight. Sandra shook her head and pronounced, I see nothing funny about this. She was incensed that someone had intimate access to Mendel, especially now that he was beginning to acquire some success and recognition. He might have been hiding her in the room when I was up there, Sandra conjectured, enraged at his audacity. Rex turned to see Sandra wide-eyed with her mouth agape. One, she said, snapping her fingers. She placed the name that had been puzzling her, remembering having earlier read it on a page of Mendel's manuscript. Now I know where I've heard that. It's not the damn Egyptian symbol of eternal life. Onyx was the name of a dragon in the novel he's writing. Onyx, not Ankh. What in hell is going on? Bewildered, Rex looked at her. He said that dog's name was Onyx, Sandra rampaged. The dog, the white dog. She waved a never mind at Rex and kept on. He said that was his name. Maybe it's Rex took a significant pause and emphasized it with two upward darts of his eyebrows. Coincidence. Cold marble slabs of hate were building up in Sandra, congealing into a feeling so frozen it burned to the touch. Desire for revenge was a sensation of flames about her head. I wouldn't jump to conclusions, Sandra, Rex told her. It's probably someone he picked up somewhere at the convention. Fans act out scenarios. I mean, there are probably at least 50 Scotties here, needing more time, Captain, you know. I passed a guy being Jean-Luc Picard, who said, "Make it so," to someone pushing the elevator button. Mendel's book isn't published yet, Sandra said dryly. You've read parts of it? Maybe others have too. Mendel has fans. What if, Sandra, you're stuttering. I'm concerned. Sandra inhaled deeply for control, reminding herself to get these subliminal self-progress tapes out of her car. That's probably all it is, Rex said. He found some fans to act things out. Sandra turned to him, proposing in a stressed, hushed voice. What if it's some opportunist, someone who wants to take advantage of him? I wouldn't worry if Mendel were in his right mind, but well, you saw him. I'm telling you, he believes it. Rex leaned discreetly toward her. What? You think he would really believe some girl who told him he was his soulmate from outer space? Sandra arched an eyebrow and let the question hang rhetorically. Up in 618, Mendel took another bite of hamburger and decided he didn't like hamburger. 3 remained on the tray because the dog would not eat them. I ordered it because I thought that's what a dog would like, Mendel said, drinking the coffee, anxious to eliminate all whiskey from his system. Maybe it'll be hungry later. Onyx barked once. She shook her head from side to side. The motion became spasmodic, then suddenly stopped. Whoa! Or maybe it wasn't to eat. Maybe it doesn't eat, Mendel thought, as he took a hard look at the dog. An eerie feeling was breaking the horizon in Mendel, and his logic worked hard at putting pieces of this puzzle together. He looked from one to the other as Arya sat on the floor next to the white samoyed and petted it. The girl consumed his attention. It pained him to see her wearing a plastic trash bag. He decided it was too acutely a commentary on the condition of the society. Where did you get the dress? He asked her. Come on, I'll help you up. She looked around the room, wondering about it herself. Settling on something, she pointed to an oblong cardboard dispenser of plastic dry cleaning bags by the luggage rack. She extended her hand to him. Were you out in the storm earlier? Mendel asked her for the second time as he pulled her to her feet. Her Bambi eyes displayed a struggle to remember when she took her hand and relinquished her attempt to surmount failure. Mendel continued his efforts to gather and assemble pieces of the enigma. Do you have anything with you? He asked kindly. She thought about his question, but appeared to be wondering more than thinking. Me, she finally said, content to have been able to answer something. It's okay, Mendel reassured her. He hadn't thought extra clothes, not even a t-shirt. He hadn't brought extra clothes, not even a t-shirt. He thought of using his pocket knife to modify a pillowcase, but it wasn't his property to be planned. So he planned to buy something downstairs. He wasn't about to leave the girl in the room, though he felt some trepidation about bringing her with him. His elated spirit did not focus on predicting and avoiding any problems that might arise in doing so. Mendel was excited. His thoughts rapidly knitted together entire pieces of the picture where they could, fitting this to that to solve the problem or puzzle, and putting questions that he wondered how to ask. For the most part, however, he floated on a glow of unthinking satori. Collecting his money and keys from the dresser, Mendel ventured, "Do you eat?" He turned just in time to see a chump take a chunk out of one of the hamburgers. In the conference room, the panel discussion had resumed, with the host recapping and summarizing the discussion of the first half. Nobel laureate physicist Werner Heisenberg said, quote, "It turns out we can no longer talk of the behavior of the particle apart from the process of observation." Rex, surprised to see Mendel come through the door, leaned toward Sandra and whispered, "There's Mendel." She turned to see he was holding hands with the girl who had opened the door. "I guess she must have changed out of her trash bag," Sandra commented caustically as she watched them. She scrutinized what the girl was wearing, some type of space costume, a tunic and tights. "Looks like she slipped back into the outfit she flew in on," Rex commented wryly, then broke into giggles. Even Sandra laughed a little. "She's short," she said. "Average," Rex corrected, being of modern height himself. "Then what of you?" he smirked. Mendel was beaming and holding the hand of the girl, who walked a little behind him, looking around as if she were in Wonderland. Assuming that Mendel was searching the room for him, Rex stood up a little and elevated one hand over his head. Sitting down when Mendel had spotted him, he narrated to Sandra, King Mendel and his space goddess, then worked to keep his face straight. Mendel reached Rex and crouched behind him. He said, "We thought it best I keep my word and make the appearance." The word "we" punctured Sandra. The sudden show of righteousness seared her. Fine, Rex started to bow out. He hastily handed Mendel the notes, concealing his disappointment. Mendel stopped him, placing his hand on Rex's forearm. "I wish you would join me in the panel. I'll be happy to introduce you." "Rex has his own panel in an hour," Sandra informed Mendel. "That's all right," Rex interrupted her. This panel had a bigger draw. There were editors from DAW and TOR Books, as well as several newspaper and film people in attendance. The host on the platform had been delivering his introductory segment, a preamble to the second group about to appear. He was introducing the guests, and as he called for the panelists to take the table, Mendel insisted, pulling Rex up off the chair to his feet. "Most magnanimous of you," Rex said, making less of Mendel's gesture with an exaggerated and aggrandized manner. Following Mendel, he tossed Sandra a glance and shrugged. "How rude of me," Mendel remembered suddenly, turning and taking a few steps back. Rex Benton, Sandra Wolford, this is Aria Flight. Her face impassive. Sandra directed an alarmed look through her eyes to Rex. Comments?
Well, she is just really showing her colors. And now that we know that, well, you know, she wants total control over him.
Uh-huh.
And the thing is that she doesn't even really like him.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
I think what she's attracted to is his brilliance, and that's what she doesn't like about him. So what she's attracted
Right,
to him is the thing that she doesn't like about him, because she either doesn't have it or she can't control it.
right,
Something else too. I think she's extremely jealous. I mean, she doesn't want him, but she doesn't want anybody else to have him.
Well,
right.
And
yeah,
she,
yeah.
Well,
I
just
think if anyone can,
like she said earlier, you know, now here's this new girl coming in with a trash bag on, and now
uh-huh.
he's about to get some fame, and she's
Mm-hmm.
put in all of this time, and,
And she's gonna be
she's like, oh, and,
pushed in the corner.
yeah, by somebody with a trash bag on.
Right. But she's wearing a spacesuit now.
Now, yeah,
well,
but
Yeah. But
when she first met her,
when Sandra first encountered her, she was
yeah,
wearing a trash bag. Yeah.
so
which is always the worst way that women meet each other. You like, oh man, I'm in the shower. I shouldn't have did that.
well, the thing is that like,
Uh,
yeah, like, and like she was just thinking, you know, although she knew he had to have recognized her voice, but
Mm-hmm.
he
Oh,
would
when
not
she
open the door for her,
right,
yeah,
right.
and that just infuriated her more and more. And then when the door does open up, oh my gosh, it's some chick
It's a
with
woman,
with a trash
yeah,
bag on,
right, and nothing under it.
yeah.
and
I see that being her greatest. I see that being her greatest adversary.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
see, as I thought it would be So far, I thought it would be Mendel trying to fight away from her control. But I see this is with Arya coming in, that it's her that's her adversary.
It is.
Even though that Arya is not thinking about that.
Aria or Mendel, nobody but her,
Yeah,
you know. It- and it's just like you said, Andre. She wants his talent, but doesn't have his kind of talent, so she wants to rob him of that. That's why she's telling all his friends that he has a drinking problem, that he's going crazy, and now
And
here's some
she's his
proof
and
and
she's his
evidence
life.
that Aria Flight is what it may be real at some level, at some point, even if she's a shyster. And that's what she's saying. I don't want an opportunist to get in.
yeah. Maybe this is
You're
the
already the
opportunity. Yeah.
opportunist.
And she's the opportunist
So
because
and that's the funny thing that you said, Penn. That in order for her to show how much she cares about him, she has to belittle him. But then she says she's the only one in the real person who cares about her. So she's not the real person, and
Right.
she's actually like a doppelganger. And
Mm-hmm.
so I'm interested just to see how this is gonna this negative feeling is gonna attack. Well, not necessarily attack, but how Arya is gonna have to deal with this, as well as Mendel. So this is gonna be, because he's not gonna be able to protect her forever.
Right.
protects who Arya.
Yes.
Well, I'm I'm kind of getting at this point. I'm kind of getting the impression that Arya is a little bit lost
Mm-hmm.
because
Yeah.
she, first of all, she didn't recognize her name when he called it. She didn't recognize. She saw the dog, and there was an affinity between the two of them, but she wasn't sure of who the dog was. I think she's at this point, she's in a new environment and she's kind of lost, and she's stymied as to what the heck is going on around
Yeah,
her.
her evolution hasn't caught up. She's who she
Exactly.
is. She's who she is, but her intelligence has to catch up the speed of
Exactly.
what's going on. So I see it that way, and that's why I'm saying that with Sandra being that adversary, I know she's gonna try. I see. Well, my prediction on it is that she's gonna try to take advantage of it.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
You're
she's
right
not gonna
about
leave
that.
it alone now.
No, she's not. No, because she's a witch and changed the W to a B.
You don't gotta change him either way. That's the same thing.
Yep. Yeah, she could be both, or she is both, really.
Most of them are.
Any other? Now you're talking to two, you know. um, any other comments? Ready to move on?
Yeah, I'm just trying to I'm thinking about Rex.
Uh-huh.
How is he just gonna be kind of like that that friend in the story, that that filler person that always kind of shows up when one of the main characters needs some
The
help.
mediator.
So
Yeah.
or
No,
whether he's gonna actually help some.
I think think I think he probably is, but at the same time, I think he is not that. How do I want to put it?
he doesn't
He
have that spark that Mendel has. He's her
right,
minion. He's her
right,
minion.
yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah.
He knows it's not right to be. He knows it's not right to be on her side, but better be on her side than be on her. Better be on her good side.
Then leave her dangling out there to
Yeah,
cause all
be on
kinds of
her bad side.
destruction. Yep. Mm-hmm. Any other comments before we move on?
No, not for me.
Okay. Ready?
Yeah.
Chapter 17. The room was throbbing with multicolored lights that flashed and pulsated to the beat. Green, red, blue, blue, yellow, blue, blue, green, yellow, red. The hotel nightclub was an intriguing cavern of wavelengths that beckoned Aria's curiosity as she paused outside its doors to listen to the music. Despite Mendel's reluctance, at Sandra's and Rex's insistence, they entered and sat together. The bar was filled mostly with out-of-town people, some on business, a few families visiting nearby Disneyland, and some of the science fiction convention attendees. While they decided on a table that satellited the dance floor, Sandra studied Mendel with sideways probes. She continued to do so as she waited, as the waitress took their order and brought their drinks. This was Mendel as Sandra had never seen him. He was calm, he was courteous, and good-humored. He acted as if the world were his to give. One thought comforted her. When Mendel was happy, all shields were down. He was open house. They were sitting next to a table of women who aspired to be rich and famous. Of the credo that stardom was a matter of having low body weight and collagen pumped lips such as theirs, they exuded altitude, and criticized other women in their vicinity, targeting various failures of perfection in surrounding female bodies. They searched and sifted for people, producers, wealthy men, executives, anyone who would serve them. Sandra had smiled to herself when they took the adjacent table, anticipating it would be only minutes before Mendel would observe them and bitterly began ranting about the disregard, about the great. Let me start that one again. Mendel would observe them and bitterly began ranting about the degraded state of civilization. Yet, Mendel, who often buckled under social settings containing varieties of human weakness, said nothing when he saw their comportment and haughty stares. He noted the persistent looks and seductive poses they aimed at him and likened them to so many fishing lines with delectably baited hooks. Deciding to terminate this nuisance, he did so with casual indifference. "Excuse me, women," he leaned over and addressed them. To be confronted with thigh and cleavage intentionally as a communication, it is quite an interesting phenomenon. I myself am not into having my sex buttons pushed today. Your bra size does not interest me. I assume you are human beings and hope you start acting with some intelligence. He quietly sat back with a plume and sipped his orange soda, leaving the table giggling and exchanging marveled looks. "Mendel, a prude?" Rex joked. He craned his head to look at the women. "I'll trade places with you if the view is bothering you. They're supposed to be people," Mendel stated. Rex turned to get a look at them again. "I'm afraid I don't see your point," he said lasciviously. "Not with those accoutrements." Sandra felt embarrassed. Her plan to use Rex as a leverage with Mendel was fading. "People are known to be sexy, you know," Rex finished, restoring some of Sandra's confidence. Often a person's innermost opinions, when disagreeable, vent only with anger or upset. Yet Mendel spoke, although bluntly, without any attitude of superiority. The benign tone empowered his words. "It isn't that you can't see my point," he told Rex calmly. "It's that you won't. You prefer the grotesque. That's what you write about. Why even discuss it?" Rex smirked. The comment stung. It felt unfamiliar for Rex to be on the receiving end. It was Mendel, opinionated, but not twirled into knots over something that offended his ideal. It was clean opinion, direct, even kind, no pain about it. A statement such as Mendel's was definitely more threatening. Sandra concealed her machination. From behind a cool facade, she glowered at Mendel, thinking, "What's he raving about now? Who the hell does he think he is?" Mendel's beneficent air irritated Sandra as much as, if not more, than the naivete with which the blonde girl next to him sat looking at everything. Acid thoughts fumed in Sandra's mind as she viewed the scenario. She noted that Mendel had not ordered alcohol, but orange soda. He had even recommended a fruit punch to this person who had the audacity to lie about her name. Whatever is she up to? Sandra held up her glass. "Cheers," she toasted, nodding toward her adversary and stressing the name area flight. In Vino Vista, in Vina Verde, Sandra justified silently as she watched the girl start on her second glass of punch. A sip and a promising wink slipped to the bartender earlier ensured her that the tropical fruit punch held the nectar of more than fruits, and now Sandra anticipated a return for her investment. Aria, who had been watching the dancers on the floor, slowly pushed back her chair and walked forward as if in a daze to join in. Mindell, you look great, accepting your award up there, Sandra quickly engaged him, hiding behind a chip of veneer, playing with her cocktail napkin as she spoke. She was set on taking full advantage of Mindell's exuberance. This is your second significant award. I suppose so, Mindell said as he curiously watched Harriott step into the dance floor and start moving to the music. So that's her, huh? Sandra filled the lull, keeping him at the table. She looks like one tired babe. Sandra shifted a quick look at Ruff, seeing his agreement, but he didn't return her silent verdict. Still stinging and feeling distracted at being trapped by Mindell, Rex only grinned and shrugged. When Mindell abruptly turned to face Sandra, he caught her off guard before she nervously transformed into smile. Seeing Mindell's brow furrow, she worried that he had caught the crossflow between Rex and himself. Mindell's preoccupation, however, was with a new danger that presented itself. Aria had to be protected. Her, Mindell acted puzzled by Sandra's question. Her, Sandra probed, knowing he knew full well what she meant. Is that her? Sandra repeated, careful to maintain a reverent note. Mindell twiddled with his straw, sat silent, then looked away. Sandra followed his gaze to the dance floor where the women were beginning to move ever more wildly to the music. I guess superintelligent life knows how to shake tail feather, Sandra commented, and she shut Rex up quickly with a sharp look when he started to laugh. I guess it probably would, Mindell replied without giving a satisfying answer. As Sandra observed Mindell watching the women dance, it amazed her that he seemed actually impressed by this person. She was average at best. She looked a little worn out, actually. No makeup, didn't seem to care much about her appearance. She looked rather plain, even stressed, except for the platinum in her hair. Earlier, when Sandra asked her where she was from, Aria had looked at her a little vapidly, as if to make me feel it was a stupid question, she decided. Then, after darting a look at Mindell, the girl had finally replied, I'm from right here and now, as if the answer should have been obvious. Sandra smiled to herself as she watched her now, not particularly dancing with anyone, but jumping and twisting to the music, completely in orbit in the small sea of bodies. I wonder how old she is. She seems childish, but she reached for her wine and took a sip, deliberately using the raised glass as shield while she probed Mindell with a scrutinizing look. She does somewhat resemble the girl you described, Sandra feigned casual earnestness as she set her glass down, except I imagine the character as much prettier. She let that hang a moment, then added, your dream girl, you know. Rex looked at Sandra quietly from across the table, then lowered his eyes. When Mendel didn't reply, Sandra zeroed in on a little closer. It's such a pleasure to meet her, to finally meet the girl in the novel. That's not the girl in my book, Mendel said. Oh, I'm sorry. Isn't her name Harriott? She said it was. When she opened the door to your room, you introduced her. That's a coincidence, Mendel said, cutting her off to avoid lying. He further detoured. How can she be the girl in my book when she's the girl right here? He laughed, seemed forced. His laugh seemed forced to Sandra, and she layered one on top of his, louder. Hers was tight, controlled, patronizing, and condescending. In the silence following the laugh, she cleared the airspace further with a look and admonished, "Oh, Mendel, what am I going to do with you?" "You don't need to do a thing with me," he replied politely, and Rex laughed, propelled by a desire to keep Mendel at what she considered a suitable size. Sandra said, "I'm personally going to take you to see Dr. Kofkiff again." "Yes, I've been," Mendel admitted openly, undermining her attempt to embarrass him. "Do you know what the diagnosis was?" He sipped his orange soda, aware of the apprehension at the table. He seemed so sure of himself. This is unlike him, Sandra thought, as she waited to hear what he was going to say. "As an analyst, I found him dully, anally retentive. In other words, full of shh." "Oh, Mendel," Sandra interrupted him, disgusted. Looking away, she saw the bartender talking to Arya at the edge of the dance floor. Panic flirted through her as she wondered what he was telling her. Rex blinked and pushed his spectacles securely onto the bridge of his nose. A habit begun to gain needed time for rebuttal, and now became a mannerism accompanying most any thinking process. It bothered him that neither arrogance nor the omniscience of his smile seemed to have an effect on Mendel anymore. Just a minute.
Harriott. Harriott, you're muted. Hello? Harriott, you're muted.
I think she said, "Hold on, real quick."
Oh, I'm sorry. I must have missed that part. Oh, well, let me pause. There we go.
Okay. Rex blinked and pushed his spectacles securely onto the bridge of his nose. A habit begun to gain needed time for rebuttal had now become a mannerism accompanying most any thinking process. It bothered him that neither arrogance nor the omniscience of his smile seemed to have an effect on Mendel anymore. There was no question in Rex's mind as to which of them was the superior. Mendel possessed charm, looks, but is not as qualified, not as educated as I. Deciding the arena would be intelligence and the weapon debate, Rex busied himself again on how to create an opportunity. He didn't want to appear as though he were trying to acerbate Mendel out of sport. As Sandra watched Arya returning to the table, she flippantly narrated, "Here comes your superior intelligence." Everyone turned to see Arya walking loosely toward them. The big smile on her face caused her to resemble a suburban girl in a shopping mall with unlimited credit. "Oh, wow, that was fun," she exclaimed as she plopped into that seat. Mendel speculated about the body of the woman he had dubbed Arya Flight. She was sweating. He found himself wondering how she had arrived, whether the body contained blood and organs. Could she suddenly vanish? The thought left him cold. "The bartender asked me where I was sitting," Arya said. "I told him I was standing. When he asked what table was mine, I didn't know they gave you tables here." "Mendel, are you listening to this?" Sandra asked, and turned and saw that he was. All three of them at the table stared at Arya, which each transfixed for different reasons. "Do they give you the tables here? Is this table mine?" the girl asked ebulliently. The three of them shook their heads no in near unison. Each watched her with varying degrees of amazement as she said, "Oh," pleased to recount something evidently of interest to her new friends. She went on, "Then he asked where I was sitting before I was standing, and I pointed, and he said he wanted to send me another drink, and said you were paying." I declared, "Why should they pay? They haven't done anything wrong." She stopped her discourse abruptly and started to look idly around the room. When she became so suddenly silent, Mendel, Rex, and Sandra all inadvertently craned their necks forward. Soon it was plain she wasn't going to continue. She was bobbing her head to the beat of the music, leaving her listeners dangling, wanting to hear the rest of her story. "Then what?" Rex prompted. "Oh," Eric came around with a wide-eyed look. "He laughed and said not to worry. He meant you were paying as in money. You know, those pieces of paper." They nodded. "I told him I didn't have any money and said I would be happy to bring him some if he could tell me where to get it. He made a noise through his nose and said he was busy and was just going to put it on the tab and to let you know about it." She pointed her finger at Sandra to demonstrate what the bartender did. "He said you would know what he meant." Sure. Everything's on me," Sandra said, acting nonchalant. She sat further back in her chair and felt relieved the bartender had not divulged that she had paid him to add a punch to the punch. "Amazing. What a vision," Rex muttered. "So he's smitten by the helpless routine," Sandra concluded about Mendel. "After all these years, I've strived to be independent and never need anything. Does he respect a self-sufficient woman? No, here he is, falling for the needy routine. He seems amused, cheerful, oblivious to the idiocy she's displaying. She can't be for real," Sandra decided. "It's an act. It has to be. Contrived, coyness at its best." Her determination to find out who the woman really was increased. Sandra smiled at Arya, then casually took her reading glasses out of her belt pouch and put them on. Her intent was to show, by contrast, the brainlessness of the girl. She mustered her composure preparatory to continuing her line of questioning when Arya, who had been watching with fascination, said effusively, "You know, they do give you an appearance of authority." Responding to Sandra's indignant look, Harriott explained, "You thought they made you look intelligent when you put them on. They do somewhat have that effect." She spoke with genuine interest, trying to be agreeable and growing with an innocent friendliness. Even though there had not been the slightest hint of malice in Arya's voice, her statement unbalanced Sandra. Platformed in her mind now was the fact that, unlike most people who use the optical aid to improve vision, she did on occasion use her glasses as a way of emanating being smart. "What? You have ESP or something," Sandra rebutted, was just derisive. It dispelled Arya's comment as ridiculous and succeeded in making her appear and feel foolish for having said it. "Can I get you another round?" a hotel waitress interrupted as she set a glass of punch in front of Arya. "You can prevent another round," Sandra played the victim. "Here I am getting dragged into something," she said, acting distraught, "and I didn't do anything." Mendel was temporarily off in his own world. He had been sporadically tracing his novel in his mind, deriving inspiration from his observations. "Can I borrow that?" He took the pen from the waitress's tray and wrote on a napkin so he wouldn't forget the words, Chapter 8. Life played its forms, disguising it from itself. The waitress nodded and smiled politely at Sandra, even though she didn't know what she was talking about. Her low-cut blouse and micro skirt revealed black lace bloomers, and underneath was vibrating one of Rex's wavelengths. My, Rex responded to what was real to him. "Does the hotel provide those uniforms?" The waitress smiled obligingly. "Can I get you something else here?" She repeated cordially. "Based on your configuration." The page. No. "Based on your configuration, I could most assuredly help you realize your innermost cravings," Rex announced pompously. "Come on, Rex." Mendel replaced the pen on the waitress's tray. Rex would not be dissuaded. Then, completely ravaged, driven wild, veritably consumed, but still in the frenzy of lust, "You would indeed be pleased to get me anything I requested, anything at all." A sardonic grimace frozen on his face. He punctuated his recitative display with a pointed stare at her breast. As Mendel watched him sit back, all pleased with himself, he realized that this wasn't flattery at all. Rex was thriving on the woman's embarrassment. It was mockery, a masquerade, a pretense of liking sex, when in fact he was only degrading it. It pained Mendel to see the waitress feeling degraded, but hesitated to speak her mind for fear of losing her job. Suddenly, the nightclub scene engaged Mendel for other reasons. It paralleled a chapter in his book where doll bodies were offering euphoristics on trays to arrivals in Z-Zone, devoid of soul life, asleep. They were coerced into believing they were nothing but machines. "I don't want to forget," Mendel looked around at him, at the people. Soul, death. Beings believing they were matter, organic or otherwise. In his novel, the personification of soul death, Jurassic gloated with derogatory glee over beings who became trapped in material body. Another coincidence, Mendel thought. Another thing he had been writing, and here it was, happening, well, almost. There were similarities, parallel. This couldn't be denied. He felt an increasing excitement. Another glimpse, I saw it. There are clues to some universal order, to the theory of everything. Focusing back on the scene at hand, Mendel realized that it wasn't that he didn't like sex, that he had been beginning to wonder about himself. It was that he loved sex and protected it from degradation. That makes me a real man, Mendel suddenly blurted out his conclusion, and no one knew what he was talking about. The bartender said to give you this, the waitress told Sandra, handing her a tab. Fine, fine. Sandra rushed to take care of it, pulling a charge card out of her wallet. Yes, sir, mighty fine, Nick muttered as the waitress threw tight lips. Aria was watching Rex spontaneously exclaimed, like a ray of sun through dark cloud. Wow, how genetic. Yes, Mendel exclaimed. It sickened Sandra to see Mendel respond to the girl as if she had uttered a decree of genius. Not just genetic, though, influenced by individual aberration, Mendel added. Aria looked around with saucer eyes from face to face surrounding her. This is so interesting, she enthused. This is human interaction, Mendel said to her. It appalled and amazed Sandra the way he was talking to the girl, as if she were a 3-year-old at a zoo. Aria asked, is it a form of social play that underneath the words people say there is a different conversation going on? Her voice and expression seemed the pinnacle of innocence. Sandra arched an eyebrow. So, you are psychic? No, Ariel replied. You must be from outer space, Sandra pronounced, getting more aggressive. Mendel froze. I am, Sandra asked. Then quickly, after staring into nothing as she did, no, I think I'm from inner space. You certainly seem psychic to me, Sandra insisted dryly. Wouldn't you say, Rex? Indubitably, he said with difficulty, restraining himself from laughing. Psychic? Aria pondered. Sandra seized an opportunity to illustrate the girl's dimness. The word means telepathic, she explained condescendingly, as the ability to read minds or the future. Don't you read minds? No, Aria said. But you said you read my mind, said I put on my glasses to seem smart. Sandra challenged, twisting to produce Aria's reaction of the comment. I wasn't reading your mind. It just came to me out of nowhere, just like that. This thought came to me as something I knew. You wanted to look smart and make me appear brainless. Sandra winced on the interior. She hadn't counted on her repeating it. She turned from the topic and dove into a loophole for cover. How could I hope to prove you brainless, she denied. You have a brain, obviously. What person doesn't? She forced a laugh. Intelligence doesn't seem to stem from the brain, Aria said, looking off and somewhere in front of her. Any comments or?
No, not yet. I think they're still she's still trying to
Yeah, they're
yeah,
lobbing comments back and forth.
yeah,
Oh,
and now that we're mixing up, we got the two women having this conversation. You got Mendel thinking about his book. You got
mhm.
Rex, I don't know, just being a horn dog out there. I don't know what.
I I think in a sense he's probably a little bit jealous or envious of Mendel.
Oh, absolutely. I think he said
Yeah,
he was.
yeah,
Yeah, so it's just the way that she's setting up the story. It's interesting.
yeah, yeah. Because we're not even halfway through, and anyway, okay, we'll get back. Did you have a comment, Andre?
No, I'm listening.
Oh, okay. Sandra let that statement hang in silence for magnification of the way the girl said it, staring off like some circus clairvoyant. Seeing Mendel's impatience to leave, Rex launched the tactic he had been harboring. You know, I noticed you incorporate archaic forms in your work, he challenged. What a delightful evening, Mendel sighed. Rex plowed ahead. For one, your use of said John as opposed to John said. That's not archaic. I just used it in my last novel, Mendel replied. Rex insisted it's archaic. The proper way now is John said, not said John. Probably just a trend thought up by some critic who really wanted to be a writer or a professor who can't contribute ideas of his own to of alters another work to feel intellectual. Let me read that again. Probably just a trend thought up by some critic who really wanted to be a writer or a professor who can't contribute ideas of his own, so alters another's work to feel intellectual. You're saying to never change anything? Did I say that? No, I was talking about trends. Degradations can't come up with anything original. It can only lessen some ideal that exists. Rex cleared his throat, pushed his glasses closer to his head. I see. So you're saying that, Rex, I'm not an intellectual. I'm just a writer. I know you developed an excellent mind at Harvard. You needn't prove it. He paused for a moment, then got halfway up from his chair and abruptly shouted, as if in distress, "Oh, no! My preposition is dangling." Heads turned toward him. Mendel, please, Sandra hushed him. She had seen this routine before. Rex smiled. And yes, I've heard you contend the brain is like a computer, a mere computer. Well, it is, Mendel said, sitting back down. It's the soul that creates from nothing. That's why it's called original, as in origin. Rex took things down a notch to what he considered more solid ground. Certainly one cannot dispute the value of education, he said attitudinally. Mendel settled back into his chair before finally answering. Education is one thing, regurgitation of facts another. I don't understand your point, Rex said. In writing, for example, the gift of words is no such great matter. A man is not made a hunter or a warrior by the mere possession of a firearm, Mendel quoted idly. Joseph Conrad, Rex returned the serve, which wasn't intended as a serve, adroitly, but he missed the point. His eagerness to vent knowledge only to intimidate others loomed in the silence. Mendel restated his point. What makes a great writer is what he or she perceives and has to say. Secondary and subservient is use of language. Rex shrugged. Never heard of it. Who said that? That's my point. The point of education is knowing what these things mean, not peacocking by reciting names and references. Harriott interjected. This is fascinating. I'm noticing a concern about being intelligent, but we are intelligence. How profound, Sandra pronounced in mock reverence. Mendel turned to Harriott. More than a concern about being intelligent, but what are you perceiving as a concern about being somebody? He said sadly. Why worry about being somebody when you already are? Harriott happily offered her solution. A regular dynamo, Sandra quipped, nodding at Harriott. The waitress returned Sandra's credit card. As she waited for Sandra to sign the slip, Rex mustered the lustful grimace on his face. He followed her with his gaze when she walked away. Why do you make a display of wanting to copulate with that woman? Arya asked him. The simplicity with which Arya spoke caused Sandra to laugh, a laugh which, though directed at being disparaging of Harriott, stemmed from pain rooted in lost innocence. Rex only leveled a calm grin at her. Let's just say he was being archaic, Mendel replied. Oh, archaic? How so? Rex asked, acting amused. Mendel spoke as though quoting an encyclopedia. Animalismo, an antiquated impulse, a generic reaction originally rooted in a thrust to perpetuate the species. With higher life forms, reason is usually employed in conducting the organism. The act has evolved to an expression of love and creation. The impulse in the human is most deniable when integrated with sentiments of affection and admiration for the person present as well as the body. Mendel was on a roll. In sum, he continued, the sex impulse remains in the realm of mere genetic response. This is, in and of itself, a productive and pleasurable activity. However, in still others, the sex impulse is not even in the archaic realm of simple procreative function, but has degenerated rather than evolved, degenerated into a means of degradation and humiliation to serve as a means of conquest, perverted or otherwise. All this, of course, under the pretense of having a genuine desire for sex, or under the anthem, there is nothing wrong with sex. Before silence could completely fall on the table, he added, and some think it is the sole purpose of life. Why, even toothpaste, cars, modes of hygiene, and transportation are sexy. How fascinating, Arya exclaimed. Sandra rolled her eyes. If only I had a pen, Mendel said. Ah, yes, Rex quoted Lord Byron, a small drop of ink falling like dew upon a thought, making millions think. A small drop of ink falling upon dew makes the world stink, Mendel converted, amused by his instant wit in adapting the quote to the situation. What do you mean by that rephrasing? Just what do you like to make them think about? Mendel paused rhetorically. Sandra thought of Rex's last novel about a group of eunuchs that tried to conquer the world, collected male body parts, and killed children. She wished Mendel hadn't asked the question. Only what I'm qualified to write, Rex retorted, puffing up, but his comment did not command the respect he had intended. Precisely, Mendel declared, and started laughing, though he had never particularly needed agreement from others to condone his action. Mendel felt reinforced by feeling the girl at his side. He was reckless from the elation. Why do you quote Lord Byron? You don't support his ideas, he challenged Rex. You glamorize distortions and crimes, and it isn't at all that you aren't responsible for your effects on society. It's that you actually derive pleasure from deviation. People buy what I write, Rex said coolly. I guess that's what a deviant is. Deviation, deviant. Mendel mulled aloud, ignoring Rex's comment. He threw in with mock pompousness, and you may quote me. Rex grinned. People are stupid. It's what the masses want. That's why they pay me. To calculate on their weaknesses and push their buttons? Perhaps you should do that a while too. Unless, of course, you can pawn your literary awards for cash, Rex delivered. Or do you dream they'll come to life as food or a rent check? Arya shook her head, sending her curls bobbing. No, people are not stupid, she insisted plaintively, her words so simplistic they were poignant. A science fiction costume contest was letting out, and a few Borgs and Klingons wandered in from the lobby. Taking a vacant table nearby, Sandra glanced over at them and wished for the night to be over. She grabbed the wheel of the conversation and threw it into a fast turn. Where did you and Mendel meet? She addressed the girl. Before Mendel could intercede, Arya answered, in the bathroom. How cosmic. You're a devoted fan, are you? Sandra cried. Mendel felt uneasy, even though Sandra was all smile. It alarmed him that Arya was looking at her so trustingly. I'm not sure, Arya answered. How about that? Sandra replied. The sarcasm did not escape Mendel. He had become all too familiar with Sandra's knack for layering it into friendly-sounding comments. It was the kind of expert veiling that left one wondering why they felt so deflauded after being with such a nice person. Or felt deflated after being with such a nice person. You've read Mendel's work, haven't you? Sandra asked, aiming to blow the whistle on the charade and get to the fact. As Sandra's intentions became obvious, Mendel's alarm increased. Though he had not pursued a logical explanation for the girl's presence in his hotel bathroom, instinct told him that whatever her story, others would not regard it in the same way he did. She herself didn't seem to remember a thing. It's her, though I know. He realized he would stir up trouble even if others only knew she had no memory. No, I've read Einstein, Arya was replying, then volunteered. I think mostly I don't learn about things, I just know them. What do you mean, Sandra Dell? Just know things. It's an active ability. I see, Sandra mused, pretending to agree. So you just know everything? I see. Though amusement flickered at the corners of her mouth, more for Mendel's benefit than anything, she felt a jab of worry that the girl possessed some smart. Venturing the risk, she asked, what of Einstein do you like? Mendel wondered how it was possible Harriott had ever read Einstein. Was it sent up in Voyager? He caught what he was thinking. Am I mad? He wondered if he had wanted to believe in her so much that he had tricked himself into seeing something that was only in his mind. Who is she? And what was she doing in my room? Imagination is more important than knowledge, Harriott quoted. Albert Einstein. Then with that way she had of seeming to be extracting knowledge, she struggled to explain, staring at the air as if it were giving her the answer. Science gives great importance to fact, but before fact, one can know something and find it only after one knows it first. Her words suddenly resonated a chime in Mendel. I know just what you mean, he exclaimed, dispelling his doubts, impulsively grabbing her hand in happiness. Rolling her eyes, Sandra conveyed her unspoken evaluation at Rex across the table. Mendel has gone over the edge. The girl hiccuped, then said, don't ask me how I know what I did. But I did. I just knew it, she added. And I know just what Einstein meant, Sandra corrected. He's dead. I'm sure he still means it, Harriott said ingeniously. Being don't die. Just the thought of thing Mendel loves to hear, Sandra thought, as she took in the sight of him gazing at Arya as if she were Botticelli's Venus in caricature. Sandra proceeded to close in. Have you read Einstein's book of essays? No, I read it on a calendar, Arya said, pointing as she referred to the merchandise display in the hotel lobby. Einstein and the calendar, Sandra said, nodding. With a toss of her meticulously groomed mane, she addressed Mendel. By the way, they loved my last piece at the magazine. I'm getting a raise. I'll be writing features and special assignments, as well as reviews. I'm happy to hear that, Sandra, Mendel congratulated her. The undercurrent that had been crisscrossing at the table was beginning to pull him down, and he wanted to leave before succumbing to the undertow. He was starting to feel leached, depleted, drained. Pushing himself back from the table, Mendel excused himself, still holding on to Arya's hand as he stood up. He told her, don't go away. He carefully let go of her hand, let go of her, almost in slow motion. I'll be right back, then we'll go, he said fervently. A little too intense, Sandra thought. As Mendel turned to go to the restroom, she quickly scooted her chair back and jumped into his flow of exit, and determined to get a level answer, and thus splintered that contingent of humans at play. Arya, Mendel stressed the name as he had seen done on Lassie returned as a boy. Where's Arya? He repeated excitedly. The dog seemed to space out for a moment, then got up and started whimpering, going around and around in a tight circle. See there, Mendel said. It's just responding to the manic tone in your voice, Sandra said. That animal's sick. The dog suddenly looked at the door and trotted out of the room. Mendel followed, quickly ushering Sandra out with him. Come on, Mendel. Think, Sandra pleaded. It probably has to go pee. Mendel took off running after the dog. Sandra stared after him incredulously, then looked at the room door. He had neglected to close. Exasperated, she yanked it shut behind her. You leave doors unlocked a lot. I walked right in earlier. That's how that woman got in your bathroom. She blared after him furiously. Any comments? Ooh.
Yeah, I kind of lost where you were when you.
I'm sorry. I flipped a page and I thought I was still on chapter 17, and it was
because the last thing I have, and thus splintered the
that contingent of
humans
humans
at play.
Right. And forget the last part that I read, because I thought it was a continuation of what I was reading, not realizing that there was a page in between, some pages in between. I'm sorry.
Yeah, chapter 18. You got to start with chapter 18.
Yeah, we start with chapter 18 the next time.
Yeah.
Oh man. I'm okay. I think I'm oh,
well,
man.
Now well, I guess we're going to get to this part where, because it is a big book, and she has a lot of information to kind of push through. So
right.
so we are going to get to this.
She's still scattering the pieces of the puzzle, and hasn't started to gather them yet or put them together yet.
Right.
Yeah, that's the way I see it anyway.
Yeah. So so I
she's
think
still trying to organize them.
Yeah.
The puzzle pieces. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's kind of interesting that we're already seeing the weirdness of Rex, how strange he is. Now Rex reminds me of the guy that you don't like. Laptor? Not Laptor, the other one.
Jurassic.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Maybe, okay, yeah. I was just about to say, yeah, that's probably Rex.
Well, I don't know. I mean,
Jurassic. I mean,
yeah.
well, and
I think that is, so we're seeing his strangeness. We're seeing what's her name, Sandra, and how possessive she is. And then she's trying to make Mendel jealous of her when she's talking about that she's going to get ready to do features soon. So it's all about ego in all of these, and all of the people, even including Mendel. Arya's the only one that really is not, that doesn't have that sense of the ego the way that the three Earthlings do.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
because what I'm seeing is the people in Mendel's life are, they're represented in his book, in the characters in his book.
Yeah.
And with the exception, I think, of Era. Yeah.
So it's just it is I do like the way that she puts all of these, because the cast is really small. The cast of characters is really small. We just got 4 people? Aria
Mendel, Aria, Sandra,
and Rex.
Rex,
And then in the story,
Luptor and Jurassic.
yeah, so Jurassic, and we don't know whether they're real or in the story. I kind of think that they're, you know, in
part
that
of the cast of characters in Mendel's book.
Right, but I think that Leptor and what's his name, Jurassic, I really think that they are characters in that fifth dimension, or that dimension wherever Onyx and Arya come.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
just in
and I
case
think they're
and just in case they're not, their characters, you know, they're not, you know, so it really is a small cast of characters for as big a plot as this is.
Right.
So I kind of
but you know, well, you know, and there are minor players that come in and out of the story, or they come in and do their little bit, and then they off and running.
But yeah, because I do think the Doctor is coming back, and I do think the Doctor is still going to have a part to play in this. I think that whole hospital setting is definitely going to is going to boomerang back and have a part to play in this. And I think Sandra has a part of it. I just can't figure out
where she fits in.
Yeah, where her negative energy makes her a female as a negative part. I can't remember if there was a female adversary to Arya in the book. I'm in the book that Manzel is reading. I can't remember how that worked. Kind of lost somebody somewhere, but I do remember Jurassic in them, and I know that they were following someone else. So I'm trying to figure out is that Sandra that dominant energy inside and outside of of both story arcs that's dealing with Manzel, because she seems to be the one that's holding everything. It seems to be a power holding everyone back.
Sandra, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I just thought about something. Could Rex and the doctor, the psychiatrist, be the Jurassic and Luptor?
Well, it just really brings me back to when the story first started and they tried to hypnotize him. He kept remembering that girl.
Mm-hmm.
And
oh, you mean when the doctor tried to hypnotize
yes.
Mendel?
Yes, Mendel. So I think that's gonna boomerang back around. I think that has something else to do with this. Yeah. That's just me. I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, it is a good story. Yeah, and that's the thing that holds that I think that is really interesting, because the way that she plots her story, you know, and how she builds on one plot to next plot, you know. Right. So now we're going to be getting ready to get back to the book, because now he's thinking about the book.
Right.
Yeah, so she always has a loop within a loop. And so, and you know, because I do watch a lot of watch on television anyway. I haven't read a lot of convoluted stuff since, you know, Stephen King. His stories can be convoluted too, but this one is Stephen King. But this author, Vanna, golly, I can never think of her name. Her last name.
Vanna Bonta.
You mean? Yeah. She writes a really, you know, amazing convoluted story that takes you from one level of consciousness, you know, sometimes even at light speed, to another level of consciousness. But then she'll right back around, so that you kind of sort of know where you are, but you're not really, you're not really
there.
Yeah, steady. You're still kind of thinking, where am I in this story?
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. But
Well,
she's
any other thoughts or comments about the book, or this could be our roundtable moment too. What can you how do we see this in our lives, and how can we how can we apply these things to our life?
well, I think it's nice when we can um fantasize about uh a different lifestyle and still I just call them trips. Really, you fantasize about being somewhere else, doing something else, or being in a certain place. But then I know with me, when I go into my fantasy land, I dream about a very luxurious lifestyle, and then reality comes back in. No, I don't want to have all that to deal with, you know. Yeah,
Nice to visit, but you
but
don't want to have to pay for it.
that's right. That's exactly right. Either monetarily, or physically, or mentally.
What about you, Andre? What are your thoughts so far about the story, or does it whet your appetite to create more stories or anything?
Well, again, this story is very intriguing to me. It's I can adapt to the character in so many different ways. Uh, through through friendships and adversaries, and
Mhm.
also using imagination, looking, pondering, and wondering. And I think we all as people can, identify with the character of Manzel, as definitely as far as that main character.
Mhm.
I think we all can see that. I think how I could benefit is kind of looking at that, remembering that everyone has their story, and it's their story. So
Mhm.
if I disagree, I don't have to jump in it, or or I can just let it, or it can just breeze by me, because it's just a moment in time in my story, in theirs as well. So it just reminds me of again connecting, and I hate to say it like that, but it always reminds me of my favorite book. It's very close to my favorite book now, which it reminds me of what it was said in the Never Ending Story. It's all a part of a never ending story. So it all
Hmm.
circles around, no matter whether it be mind or body or soul, or what you pray for or what you want. It comes to you in time, in certain,
Yeah.
in so many different ways. So it's just it's a very similar thing. So it definitely has me intrigued, and I'm definitely going to pay attention to the surroundings that I catch myself around, when it comes to individuals who do think condescending to belittle people.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah. Hmm. Very interesting. Harry, did you already say yours?
Yeah.
You went first, didn't you?
Yeah.
Well, that was
It's
so
the end of
yeah,
the
so
day.
yeah. I'm really interested. I think that this is a great story. I would love to see it as a movie. I
Hmm.
think that
Yeah, so would I.
yeah, I think that it would make a great movie. But
What's the copyright date?
excuse me. But so that's it for tonight. Let's see. Tomorrow we don't have anything for tomorrow, but Saturday we are having the healing with the chakras, and we will be exploring the third eye, and Harriott will lead that. And then on Sunday we will be working with the tarot. We're going to work from in the major arcane, from 0 to 15. So
Mhm.
from the fool to the devil, and we'll be working with the suits of swords and
Swords.
pentacles.
Okay.
So, so that's what
I
we'll be.
I just said I.
Oh, yeah. So that's it. And the only other thing I just still want to remind everybody that we have the session of the movie that's going to be on September the 30th at Sandra's, and we will be the movie is What Dreams May Come, with Cuba Gooding Jr. and Robin Williams. I do remember it was a movie from like the late 80s, early 90s, and I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it in a while, so I'm thinking it was the 80s and the 90s. It might be more recent than that, but for some odd reason, I'm
I
thinking the
don't
80s and the late 80s
mm,
and or the 90s. So,
I don't remember.
but so that's gonna be fun. And like I said, everybody BYOB, BYOB, and
B.
potluck.
Right.
So, so that's it for this evening. Any uh excuse me. Oh, goodness gracious. I had something stuck in my throat. So any questions, comments, anything new to put on the schedule? No?
No.
Okay, well then that's it. Andre, would you like to close us out in prayer?
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay, thank you.
Again, Heavenly Father, thank you for us coming together, allowing us to enlighten our minds, broaden our imaginations, and just take flight for an hour or so out of our day just to be able to imagine in our own picture, in our own movies in our head versus what's projected on the TV or the telephone or the internet or however, but just taking time out to do something that is a gift that we all can do, which is come together and read something inspirational for all of us to brighten our days, our weeks, our months, our years for that matter. With all these things we say, thank you and peace and blessings.
Peace
Thank you.
and
And peace
blessing.
and blessing.
All righty then, everybody. Love you.
Love you all.
Peace.
Have a wonderful
Bye.
night. Bye all.